So we all know the wonderful isekai trope of getting plastered by Truck-kun, but have you ever stopped to consider the sheer terror of the absolute unit known as Vending Machine-kun? Hello all of my otaku friends, my name is Profitaku, and welcome back to my channel for this Should You Read Sunday. I can't believe I'm saying it, but I fell back in love with isekai. After a swing and a miss several months ago, I decided to give it one last shot, and let me tell you what, I'm so glad that I did. I have 3 different series to do first impressions on today. Stay tuned. As always, there are no spoilers in this Should You Read Sunday, and there are timestamps down below if you just want to jump to a certain series. But before we get started with that, I do want to acknowledge the sponsor of this video, Right Stuff Anime and Yen Press. If you haven't checked out my 2022 Manga Publisher Awards, I highly recommend you do because I speak great praises of Yen Press. I love what they've been doing as of late, and I can't wait to see what they do for the rest of the year. And I don't need to say anything about Right Stuff. That is my go-to place for placing pre-orders for the entire year at a fantastic price. Great shipping and quality control, as well as fantastic customer service. You cannot go wrong with using them for all of your otaku needs. If you ever feel so inclined, my affiliate link is down in the description below. If you use it, it really helps out the channel. So again, thanks to Devin and the Right Stuff team, as well as Yen Press, for continuing to support the Should You Read Sunday series. I love doing reviews on the channel, and I can't wait to do more for y'all. So with that out of the way, let's get started with our very first light novel, The Magical Revolution of the Reincarnated Princess and the Genius Young Lady. What a mouthful. Not only is there the original source, the light novel, but there's also a manga adaptation as well as an anime that will be released soon. So this one's quite an interesting premise, so hang on to your horses. We have the Genius Young Lady here, and she is to be wed to the future king of the kingdom. However, this guy is kind of a thirst trap, and he decides to just throw her to the side. So with this poor girl's reputation shattered and ruined, she just scurries away from the castle. And to save the day and pick this poor girl up, we have the Reincarnated Princess. She was reincarnated into this past fantasy world from the modern world, and she's actually been living in this world for quite a while. She has no desire to be part of the politics of the kingdom, even though she is the princess. All she cares about is being an adventurer, making these really cool magical inventions, and being a scientist. But alas, these two team up so that the Genius Young Lady can restore her reputation, and this girl can use her magical tools to benefit the kingdom. So before I dissect this, I do want to let you guys know I gave it a 6.3 out of 10. It was an okay first volume. It wasn't my cup of tea, but there's definitely an audience for this. So the pro that I will say for this series is the story premise, not the execution, the premise. So I really like the Reincarnated Princess and the whole premise behind her. And her thing is that she makes magical items based on all of the conveniences of the modern world to help the people in this past fantasy world. So that's really cool to see. Along with this, they have this whole system of magicology, how magic is used, how magic is created, and it's really interesting, and it's explained well. Now, the problem with this series is the execution, and mainly with like this character right here, the Genius Young Lady. Basically, for the first half of the volume, we're diving into the political stuff, like I explained in the story premise. You know, this girl right here getting banished, you know, you have the prince and he doesn't like her anymore. And honestly, that's not the part of the story I really care about, but that's the part of the story that they really dived into, and they just dragged it out, and it just got so boring. The dialogue itself just seems to be going around in circles, and so you feel like you're just never getting anywhere. So with this being a 4-volume series, maybe the future volumes touch upon this, but honestly, in this first volume, it just dug too deep into the things that just didn't make the story that interesting. They also do this weird thing with the writing style where they change the first person view. So instead of just sticking with one character for the entire story, they change the word I to like different people. And so you're just really confused as a reader, like who you actually are. So yeah, honestly, I really like the story, but I don't like how it was executed in the light novel. Now, what I did here is that the manga actually is much better than the light novel because it streamlines all this dialogue, it gets rid of all the mumbo jumbo and just gives you those action scenes. So with that being said, I do recommend maybe checking out that medium before the original source material. And I don't usually say that often, but this is actually the time where I say it. So next up is a manga series that's adapted from a light novel, very similar to the Apothecary Diaries. We don't have the light novel in English, but we do have the manga. And that is the Savior's Book Cafe story in another world. I would have never checked this one out if it wasn't for Marguerite's manga, seeing it on her Instagram story, as well as Cake Tin's top 10 isekai manga. So our story follows Tsukina here. She's in her early 30s. She's an office worker. She has a really comfortable life in the modern world. And then God comes down and says, you have to go to this new world. And she's like, no, no, no. But then he forces her to. So she goes into this world and she decides to just not be the hero. She doesn't want to be the hero. She just wants to be in a really relaxed life. So what she decides to do is to make a book cafe in this fantasy world. With her newfound magical power, she creates the book cafe of her dreams and thus starts her adventure in this new world. But of course, there is always something more to it than that. But of course, that's all I'm gonna say because I don't want to spoil anything for you. So I love this first volume. I gave it like an 8.5 out of 10. It was really, really well done. And the pro that I will say about this series is that there's many layers to this thing. And I know, you look at this thing, you go, okay, look, there's a girl, she gets isekai'd and then she makes a book cafe. Like what kind of context are we talking about here? But with these standard slice of life isekai scenes in the book cafe, we get many layers of political anguish, romance, as well as drama and thriller. There's a really cool underlying mystery going on with a lot of these different characters, which makes it really, really fun to read, and it definitely hooked me and made me want to read the second volume, which is exactly what a volume 1 needs to do. So yes, I got hooked in by Book Cafe. I mean, look around, come on. But I'm staying for the really unexpected deep story that they presented here. The only con that I will say about this series is that it does move really, really fast. And it's only 5 volumes long for the manga adaptation. So of course they gotta move things along. But mainly my biggest issue was with the progression of the main character. She's just a really strong, independent woman, which I really like. But then when she gets put into this isekai world, I feel like she kind of takes a backseat and just kind of like thrown around and oblivious. And I get it. It's just the first volume. I bet you it's just going to get shelled out later on. But it was just something that I noticed. But overall, great vibes, lots of fun. Super unexpected, but a fantastic release by 7 Seas, and I highly, highly recommend this for a manga isekai. And last but not least, the one you've all been waiting for, I know, Reborn as a Vending Machine, I Now Wander the Dungeon Volume 1. So for those of you who've been living under a rock, this is a 3-volume light novel series, but you may have heard this before, and that's because it just exploded on Twitter and Instagram because it got announced for an anime adaptation. And of course, with it having to do with a vending machine, of course people started freaking out. Okay, premise time. We have this guy right here. His name is Boxo. Well, that's what the vending machine is called in the isekai world. But we have this man, he loves vending machines. A vending machine connoisseur, if you will. He's tried all different kinds of vending machines all over Japan, and one day he gets killed by a vending machine. Like literally, the guy is walking and then he just gets splattered by one. So of course he wakes up and he's in this fantasy world dungeon type area right by a lake, and he kind of looks around and then he looks down and then he realizes that he has no legs and that he's a vending machine. And thus starts his journey to survive as a vending machine in this new world. Now you guys are gonna laugh. I'm serious. Like just making the script for this video, I was laughing while I was typing it. I gave it a 9.5 out of 10. I absolutely love this. It was so funny and so cool. So the pro that I have for this is that the story premise and the execution are hand in hand. They are just done so well. What I love about this is that we just get right into it, right into the nitty gritty. And I think that the power system with the vending machine is explained super well. It's super clear. They don't overload you with information, and it's really unique and a lot of fun. So even though this world is actually pretty expansive, in this first volume here, we stay within a very small zone, which makes it really easy to keep track of with all the different characters that come in and out, and all the characters are really likable. I enjoyed all of them. Another thing to note is the writing style. Compared to the Magical Revolution here, there's only 5 chapters in this, but in this one there's like over 20. They're very small chapters and it's very episodic in nature, but by the end of the volume, then we get like 2 chapter chunks, 3 chapter stories, but this just makes it move so well, super fast paced, really interesting. Now, the only con that I will say, and it wasn't really a con for me, but it's just a con in general, was that it's a little hand-holdy, the conversations are super corny, the writing style is very dry, so you don't have to like really think hard about reading this, you just sit back, read it, and just enjoy it. I didn't get bogged down by super complex vocabulary, a really weird world with a bunch of different terminology, and just big run-on sentences. It was very much like these two have a conversation, and then they do this thing, and then they do this, and then yay. So yes, it was perfect for me because I could easily digest this. May not be the best thing in the world to the really experienced light novel reader. Yes, of course, it's kind of tropey. You've got the dumb girl here who's super strong. She's got big boobies. I mean, what do you expect? You know, they go into the bathhouse, you know, just stuff like that. And you're just like, okay, like, and he's like, oh, I'm a vending machine. I get to see the girls in the locker room. You know, it's just stuff like that. You're like, okay, like, here we go. But look, it's fine. I could take that in doses. I still highly recommend this series. Please pick this up before the anime adaptation comes out because I feel like this is gonna explode once that thing gets released. So that is it for this Isekai Should You Read Sunday First Impressions. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. All 3 of these series are really interesting in their own right, some better than others obviously, but they are all worth checking out. As always, if you enjoy my videos, please hit that like button, tap the subscribe button, hit that notification bell so that you know when more of my videos come out, and I will see you in the next one. Take care now. Bye-bye.